She didn't know that running from one rejection would lead her straight into the arms of destiny. She didn't know the Alpha King had been searching for someone exactly like her. She didn't know that being unwanted by one pack would make her precious beyond measure to another. Lyra Hayes wiped down the scarred wooden table for the third time, her movements mechanical, practiced. 3 years. 3 years since Derek Thornton had looked her in the eye and spoken the words that shattered her world. "You're nothing. A weak little wolf who can't even shift properly. I reject you as my mate." The scar on her wrist throbbed at the memory, a thin white line that never quite healed, a permanent reminder of the bond that was severed before it could truly form. She pulled her sleeve down, hiding the mark as she always did. Thunder crashed outside the Crossroads Tavern, rattling the windows. The autumn storm had driven more travellers than usual through their doors tonight. Lyra moved between tables like a ghost, invisible to most, forgotten by all, just the way she preferred it. "Another round for table 6, Martha called from behind the bar, her weathered face kind but tired. The older woman had taken Lyra in when she'd arrived at the border town with nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart full of broken dreams. "And take some bread to the corner booth. That gentleman's been waiting patiently." Lyra glanced toward the corner, noting the lone figure hunched over a steaming mug. Most travellers were loud, boisterous, eager to share tales of the road. This one sat in shadow, hood pulled low. Something about his stillness made her chest tight. She loaded the tray with practiced efficiency, bread, butter, another ale for table 6. Her hands never shook any more, not like those first months when every unexpected sound made her flinch. Time had taught her to be steady, empty, but steady. The tavern door burst open with a crash that silenced the room. 3 men entered, water streaming from their dark cloaks. No, not men. Alphas. The power rolled off them in waves, making every wolf in the room lower their gaze instinctively. Even the humans felt it, that primal recognition of predators among prey. "Rooms!" the lead figure said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "For myself and my companions will require stabling for 6 horses." Martha practically vibrated with nervous energy. "Of course, your lordship. Right away. Lyra, prepare the best rooms upstairs." But Lyra couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because the lead figure had pushed back his hood, and she was staring into eyes the colour of storm clouds, grey and silver, and impossible to look away from. He was devastatingly beautiful, not in the soft way of mortal men, but in the sharp, dangerous way of predators. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of a born hunter. Everything about him screamed power, authority, alpha. Their eyes met across the crowded room. The world stopped. Something ignited in her chest, golden and warm and terrifying. A pull stronger than gravity, more inevitable than sunrise. The mate bond, no, impossible. She'd been rejected, broken, marked as unworthy. But the sensation blazed through her anyway, that golden thread she'd felt once before, 3 years ago, right before Derek had torn it apart with his cruel words. The Alpha's eyes widened, storm grey darkening to slate. His nostrils flared, and she knew, impossible as it was, that he felt it too, that impossible, devastating recognition. "No," she whispered, the word falling from numb lips. The tray slipped from her hands. Crash! The sound of breaking pottery echoed through the suddenly silent tavern. Ale splashed across the floor, dark amber spreading like spilled blood. Every eye turned to her, but she only saw his, only felt the weight of his stare like a physical touch. "I'm sorry," she gasped, dropping to her knees among the broken pieces. "I'm so sorry. I'll clean it up. I'll—" "Careful." His voice, closer now, much closer. He'd moved with that impossible alpha speed, crossing the room in heartbeats. "You'll cut yourself." She looked up to find him crouched before her, one hand extended palm up. not reaching for her, not presuming to touch, but offering, always offering, never taking. "I've got it," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "Really, it's fine." But her hands were shaking now, the steady control she'd built over 3 years crumbling at the first touch of destiny. "You're bleeding," he said gently. She looked down. A shard of pottery had sliced her palm, blood welling bright red. She hadn't even felt it. Couldn't feel anything past the roaring in her ears, the golden fire spreading through her veins. He moved then, quick and sure, pulling a clean handkerchief from his pocket. But he didn't grab her hand, didn't assume permission. Instead, he held the cloth out to her, waiting. "May I?" 2 words. A question, not a command. Her heart stopped. When was the last time anyone had asked her permission for anything? Slowly, trembling, she placed her injured hand in his. The moment their skin touched, lightning blazed through her. Not painful, but overwhelming. Perfect. The golden thread pulled taut between them, singing with recognition. "Home," it whispered. "Safe. Yours." His breath caught, sharp and sudden. His fingers tightened around hers for just a moment before he carefully, tenderly wrapped the handkerchief around her palm. "There," he murmured, his thumb brushing over the makeshift bandage. "Better?" She couldn't speak, could barely think. This was impossible. She was broken, damaged, rejected goods, just like Derek had said. "Lyra!" Martha's sharp voice cut through the spell. "Stop gawking and clean up this mess. Our guests need their rooms prepared." Reality crashed back like a cold wave. She jerked her hand away, scrambling to her feet. The Alpha rose with her, movements fluid and controlled. "I have to," she started. "Of course," he said quietly, "but I hope we'll have a chance to speak later. My name is Damon." Damon! Even his name sounded like power. She nodded mutely, not trusting her voice, and fled toward the kitchen. Behind her, she heard Martha apologizing profusely to the distinguished guests. Heard the low rumble of Damon's voice as he assured her that accidents happen. In the safety of the kitchen, Lyra pressed her back against the door and tried to breathe. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird. The golden warmth still pulsed through her, centered where he'd touched her hand. It wasn't possible. Lightning didn't strike twice. Broken wolves didn't get second chances. But as she stood there, trembling and alive in ways she'd forgotten she could be, one truth echoed through her mind with devastating clarity. The Alpha King had come to Crossroads, and somehow, impossibly, he'd looked at her like she was something precious, like she was everything he'd been searching for. He didn't leave. Lyra had expected him to collect his room key and disappear upstairs like every other traveller. Important alphas didn't linger in common rooms. They certainly didn't notice servants. But Damon stayed. She watched him from the kitchen doorway, her hands still tingling beneath the makeshift bandage. He'd taken a table near the window, close enough to the bar that Martha could fawn over him properly, but positioned where he could see the entire room, where he could see her. Every time she emerged to serve another table, those storm-grey eyes found her. Not watching like a predator stalks prey, but like a man memorizes something precious, something he's afraid might disappear. "Stop staring," she whispered to herself, loading another tray. He's being polite, nothing more. But the golden thread hummed in her chest, calling her a liar. "Take this to the gentleman by the window," Martha said, pressing a plate of their finest stew into her hands. "And mind your manners. He's asked for you, specifically." Lyra's steps faltered. "Me?" "Said he wanted to thank you properly for your service." Martha's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What did you do, girl? Men like that don't notice girls like you." The words hit like a physical blow. Girls like you. Broken, worthless, nothing special. She carried the tray on unsteady legs, stopping beside his table. Up close, he was even more devastating. The candlelight caught the sharp angles of his face, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge. "Your meal, sir," she managed, setting the plate down carefully. "Thank you, Lyra." Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "Please, sit with me." She glanced around the crowded tavern. "I can't. I'm working." "Then let me help." Before she could protest, he was on his feet, gathering empty mugs from nearby tables with the same fluid grace he did everything else. Conversation stuttered to a halt as patrons watched the mysterious Alpha clear their tables. "You don't have to," she started. "I want to." He returned with an armload of dishes, setting them on her tray. "There, now you can spare a moment." The simple kindness of it nearly undid her. When was the last time someone had helped her? When was the last time anyone had made her job easier instead of harder? She sank into the chair across from him, hyper-aware of every breath, every heartbeat. The mate bond pulled between them like a living thing, golden and warm and impossible to ignore. "You're hurt," he said quietly, nodding toward her bandaged hand. "It's nothing, just a scratch." "Nothing about you is nothing." The words fell between them like stones in still water, creating ripples she could feel in her soul. She looked down at the scarred table. "You don't know me." "Then tell me." He leaned forward, not crowding her but offering his complete attention. "Tell me about Lyra." A bitter laugh escaped her throat. "There's nothing to tell. I serve drinks, I clean tables, I stay out of everyone's way." "And before, where did you come from?" The question she'd been dreading. She touched the scar on her wrist unconsciously, that permanent reminder of rejection and shame. "Moonstone Pack," she said finally, "about 3 days' ride from here." Recognition flashed in his grey eyes. "Marcus Thornton's territory." "You know it?" "I know of it." Something dark crossed his expression. "They're not known for their progressive views, especially regarding pack hierarchy." That was a diplomatic way of saying they were traditionalists who believed Omega wolves were barely above human servants, that they thought strength was the only virtue worth having. "I wasn't a good fit," she said, the understatement of the century. "Their loss." The certainty in his voice made her chest tight. She shook her head. "You don't understand. I can't even—" The words stuck in her throat like thorns. "Can't what?" "Shift." The admission fell from her lips in a whisper. "I'm a wolf who can't shift. What kind of mate is that for anyone, let alone—" She cut herself off, but he finished the thought anyway. "Let alone an alpha." She nodded miserably. Derek had made that point very clear. A wolf who couldn't shift was useless, defective, an embarrassment to any respectable pack. "Lyra," Damon's voice was gentle but firm. "Look at me." Reluctantly, she raised her eyes to his. "There are many reasons a wolf might struggle to shift. Trauma, fear. Sometimes the spirit simply needs the right catalyst." His gaze held hers steadily. "It doesn't make you less. It makes you someone who needs patience and understanding." "That's what my grandmother used to say." The words slipped out unbidden. "Wise woman." "She's dead now, has been for 5 years." Another loss, another reminder of everything she'd left behind when Derek rejected her. "I'm sorry." And he sounded like he truly meant it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the tavern noise fading to background static. The golden bond hummed between them, growing stronger with each passing second. "What brought you to Crossroads?" she asked, desperate to turn the conversation away from her failings. "Business with the border councils." He took a sip of ale, considering his words. "There have been disputes between territories, alphas overstepping boundaries, making claims they have no right to make." "Sounds dangerous." "It can be, which is why it's important to have someone you trust watching your back." His eyes found hers again. "Someone loyal, someone worth protecting." The words hit her like arrow strikes, each one finding its mark in her heart. Was he talking about the border disputes, or something else entirely? You mentioned not being a good fit for your old pack, he said carefully. Was it just the shifting issue? She almost lied, almost gave him the easy answer that would keep her secrets safe. But something about those grey eyes, about the way he'd helped her without being asked, made her want to tell the truth. I was promised to someone. The words came slowly, painfully. The Alpha's son, Derek Thornton. It was supposed to be a good match. Strengthen pack bonds. Damon went very still. Was supposed to be? He rejected me, publicly, in front of the entire pack. She couldn't look at him as she spoke, couldn't bear to see pity in those storm-grey eyes. Said I wasn't strong enough, wasn't worthy of the Thornton name. He's an idiot. The flat certainty of it startled a laugh out of her. You don't even know what happened. I know enough. There was something dangerous in his voice now, barely leashed power that made the air itself feel charged. I know a real alpha doesn't publicly humiliate the woman fate chose for him. I know strength comes in many forms, and the most important kind has nothing to do with how well you can fight. Derek didn't see it that way. Then Derek is blind as well as stupid. Despite everything, warmth bloomed in her chest. When was the last time someone had defended her? When was the last time anyone had suggested Derek might be wrong instead of her? It doesn't matter now, she said softly. It was 3 years ago. I've moved on. Have you? He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. Because it seems to me like you're still hiding, still believing his lies about your worth. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. She was hiding, had been hiding for 3 years, afraid to want anything, afraid to hope for more than simple survival. I should get back to work, she said, starting to rise. Lyra. Her name stopped her halfway to standing. Whatever that fool told you about yourself, it was wrong. You're not broken, you're not worthless, you're... I'm nothing special, she finished, Derek's words falling automatically from her lips. No. Damon rose too, not trapping her, but making his presence impossible to ignore. You're wrong. You're absolutely, completely wrong. The conviction in his voice made her chest ache, made her want to believe, even though 3 years of reality had taught her better. I have to go, she whispered. He let her leave, but she felt his eyes on her as she retreated to the kitchen. Felt the golden thread stretching between them, refusing to break no matter how far she ran. Later that night, after the tavern had emptied and Martha had gone to bed, Lyra found herself standing in the garden behind the building. She often came here when sleep wouldn't come, when the memories grew too loud to bear. Couldn't sleep either. She turned to find Damon in the doorway, silhouetted against the warm light from within. He'd removed his travelling cloak, and she could see the breadth of his shoulders beneath his simple shirt. Even in casual clothes, he looked like what he was. Dangerous, powerful, magnificent. The storm's past, she said unnecessarily. Yes. He stepped into the garden but kept his distance, always giving her space to run if she needed it. Beautiful night. They stood in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge from behind the retreating clouds. The mate bond hummed between them, patient but persistent. Tell me about the Alpha King, she said suddenly. He went very still. What about him? Martha says he's the most powerful shifter in all the territories, that he could have any female he wanted. She glanced at him sideways. Do you know him? A long pause. Then quietly, I know him very well. What's he like? Lonely, Damon said after a moment. Despite all the power, all the responsibility, he's very lonely. He's been searching for something for a long time, someone who sees him as more than just a title. And has he found her, this someone? When Damon turned to look at her, starlight caught in his grey eyes like trapped silver. I think he might have. The days that followed blurred together like watercolours in rain. Damon stayed. 5 days became 7, became 10. Each morning Lyra expected to find him gone, vanished like all travellers eventually did. Instead, she found him in the common room, reading reports by lamplight. watching for her with those storm-grey eyes that saw too much. He helped without being asked. When drunk miners got handsy, he was there before Martha could reach for the club she kept behind the bar. When the autumn winds rattled the shutters loose, he fixed them with hands that were surprisingly skilled for nobility. When Lyra struggled with a heavy tray, he simply appeared at her elbow, taking the burden as naturally as breathing. "You don't have to," she told him for the 100th time as he carried buckets of water from the well. "I know," he replied, the same answer he always gave, patient, steady, certain. She began to believe he might stay. Dangerous thought, foolish hope. "You're different," Martha observed on the 7th day, watching Lyra hum while she worked. "Haven't seen you this light since you arrived." Light. Was that what this feeling was? This warmth that bloomed in her chest every time Damon smiled at her across the room? "He'll leave eventually," Lyra said, more to remind herself than inform Martha. "Maybe, maybe not. That one doesn't strike me as fickle." That night, Lyra found herself in the garden again, drawn by sleeplessness and the pull of moonlight. She'd been coming here for 3 years, but now it felt different, expectant, like the very air was holding its breath. "I was hoping you'd come." She turned to find Damon stepping through the herbs, silver light turning his dark hair mercury bright. He moved like shadow-given form, all predatory grace and barely leashed power. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Nor I." He stopped an arm's length away, close enough that she could smell cedar and rain on his skin. "Too much thinking." "About the border councils?" "Among other things." His gaze found hers in the darkness. "Tell me about your grandmother, the one who said you needed patience and understanding." The question caught her off guard. "Why?" "Because when you mentioned her you smiled, really smiled. I'd like to hear about someone who made you happy." The simple request made her chest ache. When was the last time anyone had cared about her happiness? "She raised me," Lyra said slowly. "After my parents died. Gran was Omega like me, but she was fierce. Said being small didn't mean being weak." "Wise woman." "She taught me about herbs, about healing, said every wolf had gifts, even if they weren't obvious." Lyra touched a sprig of lavender, releasing its calming scent into the night air. Derek thought it was nonsense, said healing was for humans and weaklings. Damon's jaw tightened. Derek was wrong about many things. "Gran would have liked you," she said without thinking, then flushed. I would have been honoured to meet her." His voice was soft, sincere. "She sounds like someone who understood true strength." They fell into comfortable silence, standing among the moon-silvered herbs. The mate bond hummed between them, growing stronger each day despite her fears. "Lyra." Her name was a whisper on his lips. "I need to tell you something." Her heart stuttered. Here it comes. The goodbye. The gentle explanation of why this, whatever this was, couldn't continue. "I'm not exactly what I seem," he continued carefully. "Your nobility," she said, proud that her voice stayed steady. "I could tell from the first moment. You carry yourself like someone born to command." "Something like that." He stepped closer, and she could see the tension in his shoulders. "My full name is Damon Blackthorne." The surname hit her like a physical blow. Blackthorne, the Alpha King's family name. "You're," she breathed, "the Alpha King's younger brother." The words fell between them like stones. "I should have told you sooner, but I wanted you to know me first, before the title complicated things." Relief and disappointment warred in her chest. Not the Alpha King himself then, but close enough to make her head spin, close enough to make this impossible. "Why are you really here?" she asked quietly. "Border disputes, as I said, but also—" He ran a hand through his dark hair. "My brother sent me to investigate reports of unrest in the Moonstone Pack. Apparently their Alpha has been making territorial claims he has no right to make." Derek. It had to be. He'd always been ambitious, always pushed boundaries. "You're investigating my old pack," she said flatly. "Among others. Lyra, I need you to know, whatever happens with that situation, it has nothing to do with us. Us. The word made her heart race and her stomach clench simultaneously. There is no us, she said, hating how the words tasted like ash. You're the Alpha King's brother. I'm a broken Omega who can't even shift. This is fate, he said fiercely, closing the distance between them. This is the moon goddess bringing two souls together. Don't you feel it, this connection between us? She did feel it, the golden thread that pulled tighter every day until she could hardly bear to be in separate rooms. But feeling it and accepting it were different things entirely. Feeling something doesn't make it right, she whispered. Then what would make it right? His hand rose, hovering near her cheek without quite touching. Tell me what you need to believe this could work. The gentle question broke something inside her chest. What she needed was impossible. She needed to be whole, strong, worthy of someone like him. I need to not be broken, she said, the words barely audible. You're not broken. His voice was fierce, certain. You're hurt, you're afraid, but you're not broken. Before she could argue, hoofbeats thundered through the night. Multiple riders, moving fast and heading straight for the tavern. Damon tensed, every line of his body shifting into predator mode. Get inside, he ordered, authority ringing in his voice. Damon! Now, Lyra, please! She ran for the kitchen door, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through the window she watched 6 riders pull up in the yard. Even in the darkness she recognised the lead horse, the proud bay stallion with the distinctive white blaze. Derek. Her blood turned to ice water. After 3 years of blessed anonymity, he'd found her? Well, well, Derek's voice carried through the night air, smooth and mocking. If it isn't little Lyra Hayes, still playing at being human, I see. She pressed herself against the wall, out of sight, but able to hear every word. You're on neutral territory, Thornton. Damon's voice was deadly calm. State your business or leave. My business is with the girl. She belongs to my pack. She belongs to no one but herself. Derek's laughter was sharp, cruel. Is that what she told you? Poor little Lyra, cast out and abandoned? Did she mention that she ran away in the middle of the night, stole from my family before she left? Lies, all lies, but spoken with such conviction that even she almost believed them. I find that difficult to believe, Damon said coolly. Believe what you want. The fact remains she's pack property, and I'm within my rights to reclaim her. Pack property? The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees around Damon's words. Did you just refer to a person as property? An Omega person, Derek corrected smugly. And a defective one at that. Really, friend, you can do much better. I'm sure there are any number of females who would be honoured to warm the bed of someone so distinguished. Lyra closed her eyes, shame burning through her veins. This was what Derek did, what he'd always done, made her feel small and worthless with surgical precision. You have 10 seconds to get back on your horse and ride away, Damon said, his voice carrying a power that made the very air vibrate. Before I forget that we're on neutral ground. Threatening an alpha? Derek's voice rose incredulously. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? As a matter of fact, I do. Derek Thornton, second son of Marcus Thornton, recently elevated to alpha after your father's unfortunate hunting accident. The words dripped with barely contained menace. I also know about the territorial disputes you've been stirring up, the boundary violations, the unauthorized expansion attempts. Silence stretched like a bowstring. When Derek spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. Who are you? Someone who's been looking forward to meeting you, Damon replied, though I admit the reality is disappointing. I asked for a name. Damon Blackthorn. The silence that followed was deafening. Lyra could practically feel Derek's shock radiating through the night. The Alpha King's brother, Derek said finally, his earlier arrogance completely gone. The very one, and you Alpha Thornton have just made several very serious mistakes." I had no idea." "Mistake number 1, threatening to take someone under my protection. Mistake number 2, referring to any person as property. Mistake number 3. His voice dropped to something deadly quiet. "Insulting my mate." Mate. The word hit Lyra like lightning, stealing her breath and setting her world spinning. He'd claimed her, publicly, in front of Derek and his riders. "Your mate?" Derek's voice cracked slightly. "But she's nobody. Damaged goods. I rejected her myself." "Then you're a fool of epic proportions," Damon replied, "because what you threw away I will treasure for the rest of my life." Through the window, Lyra saw Derek's face in the moonlight. The shock was giving way to something uglier. Jealousy. Rage. The look of a man who'd lost something valuable through his own stupidity. "You don't understand," Derek said, his voice taking on a wheedling tone. "She can't even shift. What kind of Luna can't access her wolf?" "The kind who's been too afraid to trust anyone long enough to let her true nature emerge." Damon's words were aimed at Derek, but Lyra felt them hit her heart with devastating accuracy. "The kind who needs patience and understanding instead of cruel rejection." "This is a mistake," Derek said desperately, "when you realize what she really is." "I know exactly what she is," Damon interrupted. "She's brave, she's kind, she's been surviving on her own strength for 3 years because someone too stupid to recognize treasure threw her away." His voice rose slightly. "She's everything I've been looking for, and I'll kill anyone who tries to take her from me." The naked possessiveness in his voice made Lyra's knees weak. The golden thread blazed between them, so bright she was surprised the whole world couldn't see it. "Now get off this land," Damon continued, his tone brooking no argument, "before I decide that neutral ground doesn't apply to men who abuse women." "This isn't over," Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Oh, but it is. And Thornton?" Damon's voice followed them as they prepared to leave. "Stay away from her, stay away from this town, because if I see you anywhere near her again, I'll show you exactly why they call my brother the Alpha King." Hoofbeats faded into the distance, leaving only silence and the thundering of Lyra's heart. She waited, frozen against the kitchen wall, until gentle knocking came at the door. "Lyra?" Damon's voice was soft now, all the deadly authority replaced by tender concern. "It's safe. They're gone." She opened the door on trembling legs, looking up into storm-grey eyes that held nothing but love and fierce protectiveness. "You called me your mate," she whispered. "I called you what you are," he replied simply. "What you've been since the moment I saw you." "But I can't. I'm not—" "You're perfect," he said, reaching up to cup her face in gentle hands. "And someday, when you're ready to trust me completely, I'll prove it to you." The promise in his voice made her chest tight with hope and terror in equal measure. Because despite everything Derek had said, despite all her fears and inadequacies, Damon Blackthorne, brother to the Alpha King, was looking at her like she was everything he'd ever wanted, like she was worthy of love. 3 days. Derek had given her 3 days to choose. Return to face proper judgment for her supposed crimes, or watch Crossroads burn. Lyra stood at her bedroom window, watching the sun rise over the town she'd called home for 3 years. Below, merchants opened their stalls. Children played in the streets. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that their safety hung on the choice of one broken Omega. "You're not seriously considering this?" Damon's voice from behind her carried barely leashed fury. She didn't turn around. Couldn't bear to see the disappointment in those storm-grey eyes. "He'll do it," she said quietly. "Derek doesn't make idle threats. If I don't go back with him, he'll find an excuse to attack. Neutral territory won't protect innocent people." "Then we'll protect them." He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "I have men coming. My brother's forces—" "A war." The words tasted like ash. "You're talking about starting a war over me?" "I'm talking about protecting what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice made her chest tight. 3 days since he'd claimed her publicly, and he still looked at her like she was precious, like she was worth fighting for. It made leaving so much harder. "I'm not worth it," she whispered. "Don't." His hand closed over hers on the windowsill, warm and steady. "Don't you dare say that!" "It's true. Derek was right about me. I'm damaged goods, broken. I can't even—" "If you say you can't shift one more time, I'm going to lose what's left of my mind." He turned her to face him, hands gentle but firm on her shoulders. "Lyra, listen to me. Your worth isn't determined by your wolf form." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one who transforms into a pathetic excuse for a shifter." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Show me." "What?" "Show me this pathetic excuse you're so ashamed of." His voice was quiet but implacable. "Right here, right now." Fear clutched her throat. "I can't, not in front of you." "Why? Because you think I'll reject you like he did?" The words hit too close to home. That was exactly what she feared, that he'd see her weak, malformed wolf and realize Derek had been right all along. "Lyra!" His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize were falling. "Do you trust me?" "With my life," she said without hesitation. "Then trust me with this. Show me your wolf." She closed her eyes, reaching for the place inside herself where the shift lived. For 3 years she'd kept that part locked away, too ashamed to let it breathe. Now, under Damon's patient gaze, she let the barriers fall. Power rippled through her, golden and warm. Her bones began to elongate, muscles restructuring themselves with the familiar burn of transformation. But it was wrong, just like always. Too slow, too painful, too beautiful. Her eyes snapped open at the reverent word. She expected to see a small, weak wolf in the mirror across the room. Instead, she saw silver, gleaming silver fur that caught the morning light like moonbeams. She was smaller than most shifters, yes, but perfectly proportioned, elegant, swift. "How?" The word came out as a confused whine. "Because you're not broken," Damon said, kneeling beside her wolf form. "You're rare. A silver wolf hasn't been born in over a century. Your grandmother probably knew, didn't she? That's why she told you to be patient with yourself." Memory crashed through her. Gran in her final weeks, whispering words Lyra had thought were fever dreams. "Silver Wolf, my precious girl, when the time comes, when you're safe enough to shine, they'll see what you really are." She shifted back to human form, stumbling slightly as the transformation completed. Damon caught her, steadying her against his chest. "I don't understand," she gasped. "I've shifted before, never like that." "Because you were terrified, ashamed, convinced you were defective." His hand stroked her hair, soothing. "Fear corrupts the shift, makes it painful, incomplete, but when you feel safe." He tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. "When you trust completely, your true nature emerges. A silver wolf, rare, precious." Everything Derek had convinced her she wasn't, but the revelation came too late. "It doesn't change anything," she said, pulling away from his warmth. "Derek's still coming back tomorrow. People will still die if I don't." "So we run." The words fell between them like a declaration of war. "Tonight, we leave Crossroads and never look back." "And go where? Derek will follow. He'll hunt us across every territory until he faces the full might of the royal pack." Damon's voice carried absolute certainty. "Until my brother puts him in his place permanently." "Your brother has his own problems. You said so yourself. Border disputes, territorial challenges. He can't spare resources for one Omega's troubles." "He can for his brother's mate." The title still made her heart race. Mate. After 3 years of being nobody, she was someone's mate. Someone important. Someone who mattered, but not important enough to risk innocent lives. "I've made my decision." The words came out steadier than she felt. "I'm going back with Derek." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. "You're choosing him," Damon said finally, his voice carefully controlled. I'm choosing to protect people I care about. By sacrificing yourself to a man who doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as you." Anger flared in her chest. "This isn't about what Derek deserves. It's about what I owe to Martha, to everyone here who gave me a home when I had nothing." "And what about what you owe me?" The question exploded from him, raw and desperate. 3 days ago, you let me claim you, let me tell the world you were mine. Was that all a lie?" "No." The word tore from her throat. It wasn't a lie, but it was a mistake. He flinched as if she'd struck him. "I should never have let myself hope," she continued, each word a knife to her own heart. "Should never have believed someone like you could want someone like me for more than a few nights." "Someone like me?" His voice was dangerous now, predator quiet. "What exactly do you think I am, Lyra? Powerful, important, destined for greatness." She met his eyes, letting him see the truth she'd been hiding. "And I'm none of those things. I'm a broken omega from a nowhere pack, and sooner or later you'll realize you could do better. Better than my fated mate? Better than damaged goods." The words hung between them like a blade. Damon went very still, and for a moment she thought he might argue, might fight for her the way he had with Derek. Instead, he stepped back. "If that's what you truly believe," he said quietly, "then maybe you're right. Maybe Derek was right all along." The words hit her like physical blows. She'd wanted him to fight for her, to prove her wrong. Instead, he was agreeing with her deepest fears. "Maybe you are too broken to be saved." She gasped, the cruel words finding every vulnerable place in her heart. He turned toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I thought you were braver than this. I thought the woman who survived 3 years on her own would be strong enough to fight for her own happiness." The door closed behind him with devastating finality. Lyra sank to the floor, her legs no longer able to hold her weight. The golden bond in her chest felt severed, leaving only cold emptiness behind. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? For him to see the truth about her? To realize she wasn't worth the trouble? So why did it feel like dying? Hours passed in a blur of numbness. When evening came, she began to pack. The same small bag she'd arrived with 3 years ago, stuffed with the few possessions she'd managed to accumulate. It didn't take long. She'd never allowed herself to put down real roots. A soft knock at her door made her freeze. "Lyra?" Martha's voice gentle and concerned. "May I come in?" She opened the door to find the older woman holding a tray of tea and bread. Martha's eyes took in the packed bag, the tears on Lyra's cheeks, and her expression softened with understanding. "So it's true, then? You're leaving with that Thornton boy?" Lyra nodded, not trusting her voice. Martha set down the tray and pulled her into a fierce hug. "You foolish, brave girl! Do you really think sacrificing yourself will keep us safe? Derek won't hurt innocent people if he gets what he wants." "And what about what you want?" Martha pulled back, studying her face. "What about that young man downstairs who looks like someone tore his heart out?" "Damon?" Lyra's chest clenched. "He's still here?" "In the common room, drinking whiskey and staring at the stairs like he's waiting for something." Martha's eyes were knowing. "Looks like a man who said things he didn't mean." "He meant them." The words came out hollow. "I saw his face. He realized I was right about myself." "Did he? Or did he realize you'd already given up?" Before Lyra could answer, raised voices echoed from downstairs. Familiar voices. Her blood ran cold. Derek had returned early. Martha cursed colourfully, grabbing Lyra's arm. "Stay here. Lock the door." But it was too late. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs, and Derek's voice carried clearly. "I know she's here. 3 days was generous. I'm taking her now." "Over my dead body," Damon's voice cold as winter steel. "That can be arranged." The sound of shifting came from below, bones cracking, muscles expanding, predators preparing for war. Lyra ran for the stairs, Martha's protest lost behind her. She couldn't let them fight, couldn't let Damon get hurt because of her cowardice. She burst into the common room to find two wolves circling each other. Derek, large and brown and bristling with aggression, and Damon. Damon was magnificent. Black as midnight with silver markings along his flanks, he was larger than Derek by half. Power radiated from him in waves, making the very air vibrate with authority. "Stop!" The word tore from her throat. "Both of you, stop this!" Two pairs of eyes turned to her. Derek's held triumph and possession. Damon's held nothing but ice-cold fury. "I'll go," she said, the words feeling like shards of glass. "Derek, I'll go with you, just don't hurt him." Damon shifted back to human form, magnificent and terrible in his rage. "So that's your choice," he said, his voice cutting. "You'd rather go with him than trust me to protect you." "I'm trying to protect you," she whispered. "From what? A second-rate alpha with delusions of grandeur?" He laughed, the sound bitter as winter wind. "I'm the Alpha King's brother, Lyra. I've fought wars you can't imagine, and you think this pathetic excuse for a wolf is a threat?" Derek snarled, still in wolf form. "But you know what?" Damon continued, his gaze never leaving her face. "Maybe you're right to choose him. Maybe broken wolves belong with broken alphas." The words destroyed her, shattered every fragile hope she'd dared to nurture. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Maybe we do." She walked toward Derek, each step feeling like a funeral march. He shifted back to human form, triumph gleaming in his eyes. "Smart girl," he said, reaching for her arm. The moment his hand touched her skin, everything changed. Pain exploded through her chest, not physical, but worse. The severing of the mate bond, incomplete though it was, felt like having her heart torn from her body. She gasped, stumbling, and Derek's grip tightened. "You felt that, didn't you?" Derek's voice was poisonously sweet. "The bond breaking. That's what happens when mates choose others. It never really goes away, you know. That pain, you'll carry it for the rest of your life." Behind her, she heard Damon's sharp intake of breath, felt the exact moment he realized what she'd just sacrificed. Lyra. Her name was a broken prayer on his lips. She didn't turn around, couldn't bear to see what she'd lost. "Let's go," she told Derek, her voice empty as winter wind. "With pleasure." His hand was rough on her arm, possessive in all the wrong ways. "Time to go home and face judgment for your crimes." As Derek dragged her toward the door, Lyra caught sight of her reflection in the dark window. She looked like a ghost, a shadow of the woman who dared to hope for something better. Behind her she heard the sound of breaking glass, Damon's rage finally finding an outlet. She didn't look back, couldn't look back, because if she did, she might find the courage to fight for herself, and broken wolves didn't deserve to be saved. The ride to Moonstone territory passed in a haze of pain. Not the physical discomfort of being bound on Derek's horse, though her wrists ached where the ropes cut into her skin. No, this was the agony of a severed mate bond, a constant burning in her chest that made every breath feel like swallowing glass. "Stop looking so pathetic," Derek snarled from beside her. "You made your choice." Choice. As if choosing between watching innocent people die and sacrificing herself was really a choice at all. They'd been riding for 2 days, and Derek's patience was wearing thin. He'd expected her to beg, to plead for mercy, or at least show some fear of what awaited her at Moonstone Pack. Instead, she rode in numb silence, her heart too broken to feel anything else. "When we arrive," Derek continued, "you'll face the Pack Council. They'll decide your punishment for theft and abandonment." "What did I supposedly steal?" The words came out hoarse from disuse. "Moonstone Pack resources, food, shelter, protection, all wasted on a defective Omega who couldn't even fulfill her basic purpose." Her basic purpose? To be a broodmare for his ambitions, nothing more. "And then?" she asked, though she already knew. "Then you'll take your rightful place. Serve the pack as Omegas should. Clean, cook, bear pups for whoever claims you." His smile was cruel. "Don't worry, I'm sure someone will want damaged goods eventually." The words should have hurt. A week ago, they would have destroyed her. Now they just added to the numbness spreading through her soul. Behind them, hoofbeats thundered across the ground. Derek cursed, pulling his horse to a halt as 6 riders approached at full speed. Royal banners snapped in the wind, the Alpha King's colours. Lyra's heart clenched. She'd hoped Damon would let her go. Hoped he'd realise she wasn't worth pursuing. She should have known better. The riders formed a circle around them, weapons drawn but not yet threatening. At their head rode a man who could only be the Alpha King himself, tall, commanding, with Damon's storm-grey eyes but harder, colder. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge. "Derek Thornton!" The Alpha King's voice carried absolute authority. "You're trespassing on royal land?" Derek's face went pale. "Your Majesty, I wasn't aware." "You're also transporting someone under royal protection against her will." Those grey eyes found Lyra, assessing. "Are you hurt?" She opened her mouth to lie, to say she came willingly, but the words wouldn't come. The Alpha King's gaze was too knowing, too sharp. "I'm fine," she managed. "No," said a familiar voice from behind the royal guard. "You're not." Damon rode forward, and Lyra's breath caught. He looked haggard, fury and pain etched into every line of his face. When their eyes met, she saw the exact moment her heart broke all over again. He'd come for her. Despite everything she'd said, every cruel word, he'd come. "Your Majesty," Derek stammered, "this is pack business. The girl belongs to Moonstone." "The girl belongs to herself," the Alpha King said with deadly quiet. "But since you seem confused about territory law, let me clarify. Anyone who accepts the protection of a royal family member is under Crown jurisdiction." "But she chose to leave." "Under duress." Damon's voice was sharp as a blade. "To protect innocent people from your threats." Derek's jaw tightened. "She's defective, broken. Surely the Crown has no interest in damaged goods." The temperature around the Alpha King seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Did you just refer to a person as damaged goods in my presence?" She can't even shift properly." "She's a silver wolf, you ignorant fool." Damon's words rang with conviction. "Rarest of all shifters, and you're too stupid to recognise treasure when it's in front of you." Silver wolf. Even bound and broken, pride flickered in Lyra's chest. Damon still believed in what she could be. "I claim formal challenge," Derek said suddenly, desperation making his voice crack. "Traditional combat for the right to her." Silence stretched like a bowstring. The Alpha King's expression grew contemplative. "Interesting," he said finally. "Very well, but since she's under royal protection, you'll face a royal champion." Derek's eyes lit with triumph. He was young, strong, aggressive. Most royal champions were older, more experienced, but past their prime. "I accept," he said quickly. "Excellent." The Alpha King smiled, and it was sharp as winter wind. "You'll face my brother." Derek's face went white as he finally understood the trap he'd walked into. Damon Blackthorne wasn't just the Alpha King's brother. He was the royal champion, the Crown's deadliest warrior. That is, perhaps we could negotiate." Too late. Damon was already dismounting, moving with that predatory grace that had captivated Lyra from the first moment. "You wanted a challenge. You have one." "Damon, no." The words tore from Lyra's throat before she could stop them. "Don't fight him because of me. I'm not worth it." He turned to face her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her breath catch. "You're worth everything," he said simply. "You're worth dying for." "Then live for me instead," she whispered. "Live for me and let me go." Something shifted in his expression. Determination replaced pain, certainty replaced anguish. "No," he said firmly. "I'm done letting you run. Done letting you believe Derek's lies about your worth." He turned back to Derek, power beginning to radiate from him in waves. She is my fated mate, my chosen queen, and I will not allow anyone to diminish her ever again. Queen. The word hit her like lightning. Challenge accepted, Damon continued, his voice carrying to every member of both parties. Traditional rules to the death or submission. Derek shifted first, desperation lending speed to his transformation. The same brown wolf she remembered, large but ungainly, all aggression and no finesse. Damon's shift was poetry in motion. Bones flowed like water, muscles rippling as he became something magnificent. The black wolf with silver markings she'd seen in the tavern, but here, in open ground, he was devastating. Larger than Derek, faster, moving with deadly precision. They circled each other, and Lyra held her breath. Derek might be desperate, but he was still dangerous, still capable of getting lucky. Derek lunged first, going for Damon's throat. Damon sidestepped smoothly, his claws raking across Derek's flank. Blood sprayed across the grass. Again and again, Derek attacked with brute force. Again and again, Damon turned it aside, each counterattack precise, controlled, devastating. "Yield," Damon's voice carried clearly despite his wolf form, the words formed through supernatural means. "Yield, and I'll let you live." "Never," Derek snarled back, launching himself forward in a final desperate assault. Damon caught him mid-leap, massive jaws closing around Derek's throat. Not crushing, not yet, but the threat was clear. One movement, one increase in pressure, and it would all be over. Derek went limp, submission written in every line of his body. "I yield," he gasped. "I yield." Damon released him, shifting back to human form as Derek collapsed to the ground, gasping and bleeding but alive. "You are stripped of all claims regarding Lyra Hayes," Damon declared, his voice carrying the authority of Crown law. "You are forbidden from contacting her, approaching her, or making any demand upon her person. She is under permanent royal protection, and any violation of this decree will be considered an act of war against the Crown." Derek nodded frantically, too defeated to argue. Damon turned toward Lyra, and she saw her entire future in his storm-grey eyes. "Now," he said, approaching slowly, carefully, as if she might bolt again. "Let's discuss what you said about not being worth it." He cut her bonds with gentle hands, rubbing circulation back into her wrists with infinite care. "Damon," she started. "No." His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was crying. "My turn to talk, your turn to listen." She nodded mutely. "You are not broken," he said, each word deliberate and sure. "You are not damaged goods. You are not worthless." His voice grew stronger with each declaration. "You are brave. You are kind. You are precious beyond measure. But you survived 3 years on your own strength. You sacrificed yourself to protect people you cared about. You faced your worst fear to save others from harm." His smile was soft, beautiful, full of love. "That's not broken, darling. That's heroic." The endearment broke something loose in her chest. When was the last time anyone had called her darling? "I was afraid," she whispered. "Of course you were. You'd been hurt, betrayed, convinced you were worthless." His thumbs traced her cheekbones with infinite gentleness. "But you're not afraid now, are you?" And she realized he was right. The fear that had haunted her for 3 years, the certainty that she wasn't good enough, it was gone. In its place was something warm and golden and strong. "No," she breathed, "I'm not afraid any more." "Good." He dropped to one knee before her, and her heart stopped. "Because I have something to ask you." Around them, the royal guard straightened. Even Derek lifted his head to stare. "Lyra Hayes," Damon said, his voice carrying to every witness present. "Silverwolf, survivor, the bravest woman I've ever known. Will you accept my claiming? Will you be my mate, my queen, my everything for the rest of our lives?" The golden bond blazed to life between them, stronger than ever. Not broken, she realized, just waiting for her to choose it freely. "Yes," she said, the word coming out like a song. "Yes, yes, yes." He surged to his feet, pulling her against him, and when their lips met, the world exploded into golden light. The mate bond snapped into place fully, completely, perfectly. She could feel his love, his devotion, his absolute certainty that she was everything he'd ever wanted. Around them, the royal guard cheered. Even the Alpha King smiled, and for the first time in 3 years, Lyra Hayes felt like she was home. "My queen," Damon whispered against her lips. "My king," she whispered back, and knew she'd finally found where she belonged. 6 months later, Lyra stood before the mirror in her chambers, marvelling at the woman looking back at her. Gone was the hollow-cheeked servant girl who'd hidden in tavern shadows. In her place stood someone radiant. Her silver hair, no longer hidden beneath a servant's cap, caught the morning light like spun moonbeams. The rejection scar on her wrist had faded completely, replaced by the golden mate mark that pulsed with Damon's love. But the greatest change wasn't physical. It was the confidence in her stance, the peace in her eyes, the way she carried herself like someone who knew she belonged. "Your Majesty?" Ilara, her lady-in-waiting, poked her head through the doorway. "The Alpha King requests your presence in the throne room when you're ready." Your Majesty. Even after months, the title still sent warmth spreading through her chest. Not because of the power it represented, but because of how Damon said it. Like a prayer, like a promise, like she was the most precious thing in his world. "I'll be right there," Lyra said, smoothing her hands over the flowing blue gown. Royal colours, but she'd insisted on a simple cut. Some things didn't change. She still preferred comfort over ostentation. The walk through the castle halls no longer intimidated her. Pack members bowed respectfully as she passed, but their deference held warmth, not fear. She'd earned their loyalty through actions, not birthright, establishing healing centres, creating sanctuaries for rejected wolves, mediating disputes with patience rather than power. "My queen approaches," Damon's voice carried across the throne room, rich with love and barely contained amusement. She found him in the centre of a heated discussion with 3 border alphas, all talking at once about territorial disputes. The moment she entered, his attention shifted completely to her. Storm-grey eyes lighting with the same devotion they'd held from the very beginning. "Gentlemen," he said without looking away from her, "we'll continue this later. My mate requires my attention." "But, Your Majesty," one of the alphas protested, "these border issues will still be there in an hour." Damon rose from his throne with fluid grace, crossing to Lyra in quick strides. "Some things are more important than politics." He took her hands, thumbs brushing over her knuckles in the gentle gesture that always made her heart skip. "You called for me?" she asked. "I always call for you," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear, every moment of every day. Even after 6 months of marriage, he could still make her blush. "The border alphas looked frustrated," she observed. "They'll survive. Besides," his smile turned wicked, "I have something far more interesting to discuss than boundary lines." "Oh, what's that?" Instead of answering, he led her toward the great windows overlooking the royal gardens. Below, children played among the flowers, sons and daughters of pack members, laughing and chasing each other through the maze of paths she'd helped design. "Do you remember what you told me about your grandmother?" he asked. "Which part?" "That she taught you about healing, about herbs and caring for others." His arm slipped around her waist, pulling her close to his warmth. "You've built something beautiful here, Lyra. The healing centres, the sanctuaries. You're changing lives across the kingdom." Pride swelled in her chest. The sanctuaries had been her idea, safe places for wolves who'd been rejected or cast out. In 6 months, they'd helped dozens of people find their place, their strength, their worth. "It's important work," she said simply. "It is, and it's about to become even more important." He turned her in his arms, hands settling on her waist with reverent care. because our heir is going to need to understand the value of compassion from the very beginning. Our heir! The words hit her like lightning, stealing her breath and setting her heart racing. "Damon," she whispered, "are you saying—" "I'm saying that the castle's healer confirmed what I've suspected for weeks." His smile was brilliant, transformative. "You're carrying our child." Joy exploded through her, so bright and overwhelming she thought she might faint. "I'm pregnant." "You're pregnant." He spun her in a circle, both of them laughing with pure happiness. "We're having a pup." When he set her down, tears were streaming down her cheeks. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, tears of a future she'd never dared to dream. "I can't believe it," she gasped. "Believe it." His hands cradled her face, thumbs brushing away the tears. "Believe that you're going to be an amazing mother. Believe that our child will be loved beyond measure. Believe that this is only the beginning of our story." Their story. From broken Omega to queen to mother. It seemed impossible, like something from a fairy tale. "Are you happy?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. "Happy?" He laughed, the sound rich and joyous. "Lyra, you've given me everything I never knew I was missing. A mate who sees my soul, a queen who leads with her heart, and now a child who'll carry both our strengths." His voice grew softer, more intimate. "I'm not just happy, I'm complete." She kissed him then, pouring all her love and gratitude and wonder into the touch. The mate bond sang between them, golden and perfect and eternal. "The pack will be thrilled," she said when they broke apart. "They will. But first I want to enjoy this moment, just us." His forehead rested against hers. "Do you remember the night we met, when you dropped that tray and looked at me like I was dangerous?" "You were dangerous," she pointed out. "You turned my entire world upside down." "You did the same to mine." His smile was soft, remembering. "I took one look at you and knew my searching was over. Knew I'd found home." Home. The word wrapped around her heart like a warm blanket. "Take me there," she said suddenly. "Where?" "Crossroads. I want to see Martha, want to tell her about the baby." She paused, considering. "Want to see where our story really began." An hour later, they rode through the countryside, just the two of them and a small guard escort. Lyra had insisted on riding her own horse, a gentle mare Damon had gifted her for their wedding, despite his protective hovering over her condition. "I'm pregnant, not invalid," she'd laughed when he'd suggested she ride with him. "You're precious cargo," he'd countered. "Both of you." Now, approaching the familiar outline of Crossroads, Lyra felt a complex mix of emotions. This place had been her sanctuary for 3 years, her safe harbour in a storm of pain and uncertainty. But it had also been her prison, the place where she'd hidden from her own potential. "Nervous?" Damon asked, riding beside her. "A little. It feels like visiting a past life." "In many ways it is." The tavern looked exactly the same, weathered wood, cheerful windows, the signs swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. But when they dismounted, Martha burst through the door like a woman half her age. "Lyra!" She swept her into a fierce hug, then held her at arm's length to study her face. "Look at you, girl, absolutely glowing." "Martha," Lyra's voice caught with emotion, "I've missed you." "And I've missed you, though I hear you've been busy playing queen." Martha's eyes twinkled with pride and affection. "Something like that." "Your Majesty." Martha turned to Damon with a respectful curtsy that somehow managed to be both proper and gently mocking. "Please, just Damon," he said with genuine warmth. "After all, you gave me the greatest gift imaginable." "Did I now?" "You gave her a home when she needed one most, helped her heal enough to trust again." His arm slipped around Lyra's waist. "I owe you everything." Martha's weathered face softened. She was worth saving, always was. They spent the afternoon in the tavern's common room, sharing stories and catching up. Lyra told Martha about the castle, about her work with the sanctuaries, about learning to be a queen. Martha regaled them with tales of new travellers, town gossip, and the 3 marriage proposals she'd firmly rejected. "Too set in my ways for romance now," Martha declared, "though watching you two gives an old woman hope." As evening approached, Lyra found herself standing in the garden behind the tavern. The same garden where she'd stood sleepless and afraid, where Damon had first hinted at his true identity. "Remembering?" His voice came from behind her, warm and knowing. "Everything." She leaned back against his chest, his arms coming around her naturally. "I was so scared that night, so convinced I didn't deserve anything good. And now? Now I know better." She turned in his arms, meeting his storm-grey gaze. "I know I deserve love, deserve happiness, deserve a future filled with possibilities I never dared imagine." "What changed?" "You," she said simply. "You saw me when I was invisible, valued me when I felt worthless, fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." Her hand rested on her still flat stomach. "And now we're creating something beautiful together." "We are." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "Our child will grow up knowing they're wanted, valued, loved unconditionally. They'll never doubt their worth the way you did." "Never," she agreed fiercely. Later that night, as they prepared to return to the castle, Martha pressed a small package into Lyra's hands. "What is it?" "Something your grandmother left with me years ago. Said to give it to you when you found your true place in the world." Martha's eyes were misty. "Seems like now is the right time." Inside the package was a simple silver pendant, a wolf running free beneath a full moon. On the back, in her grandmother's careful script, were the words, "For my silver wolf when she's ready to shine." "She knew," Lyra breathed. "She always knew what I was." "Wise women usually do," Martha said softly. As they rode back to the castle under starlight, Lyra wore her grandmother's pendant and felt the circle completing. From rejected Omega to Silver Wolf to Queen to Mother to Be, each step had been necessary, each challenge had made her stronger. "No regrets?" Damon asked as the castle came into view, its windows glowing warmly in the darkness. "None," she said with absolute certainty. "Every broken moment led me to you. Every tear, every fear, every doubt, it was all worth it for this." "For what?" "For love, for family, for a future bright enough to heal any past." She smiled at him, radiant and complete, "for coming home." 6 months ago she'd been nobody, now she was everything, and this was only the beginning. "I love you," Damon said as they approached the castle gates. "I love you too," she replied, the words carrying all her certainty, all her joy, all her hope for their golden future. Behind them, the road to Crossroads stretched into the night, a reminder of where they'd been. Ahead their castle shone like a beacon, a promise of where they were going, together, forever, home.